Hello everyone, and today I'm very happy to have a special guest, very special to me. We're gonna talk about commercial real estate investment, and we have an expert coming all the way from UK. He's a good friend of mine and also of a common friend, and his name is Ryan. I'm gonna give the word to you, Ryan. I'm just gonna say he's a great PR Markham into the hospitality field, and also he has an experience into commercial real estate, and he's gonna talk about the future of real estate. Right, Ryan?
Put me on a pedestal there, Elio. Thank you very much indeed. I certainly hope to be able to contribute some of my experience and certainly some of the ways that we've seen commercial real estate change over the last 10 or 15 years, and what that could mean for different sectors of the commercial real estate marketplace. I mean, it's certainly fascinating, and I think we've got a lot of change ahead of us, especially due to some success and I'd say failures over the last 5 years.
Okay, let's start with the failure. I like that. So let's just talk a little bit about yourself, maybe your failures, and then we talk about someone else's failure and how this can turn into a success. Okay, Ryan?
Okay, so you just want me to talk about my failures?
Maybe just recently. but by the way,
I've recently failed. Thank you, Elio. No, I understand what you mean. Yeah, I mean, I think that when things don't go as you expect them to, you learn a lot more from that than you learn from when things are successful. When things are successful, you just enjoy it, you celebrate it, you go along with the role, you keep moving. And then you can get a sudden shock if something doesn't work, if you don't know necessarily how to rectify that problem. So actually, not that I encourage people to go out there and fail, but don't be afraid of failure. At the end of the day, you've just got to be brave and put yourself in sometimes circumstances and situations that you don't necessarily feel comfortable with, because I really do think it helps push you to the next level, and it's certainly something that I've even done recently. I was a broadcaster for 10 years, and
so you're not the Ryan, you know, the one on the TV, on the YouTube, the title.
Yeah, with all the children's toys. Definitely not. Way too old to be doing the types of broadcasting that he is doing, and certainly haven't reached the billion viewer success that he's managed. But you know, it certainly is. It's you know, I was in broadcasting. I was expecting that was going to be a career that I was going to be in for life. I then hung up my microphone about 10 years ago, and I've come back to the microphone again in the last couple of weeks because I realized that potentially, yeah, I can add value. So I launched a podcast called Travel Market Life, where I'm speaking to people across the industry at how the market is going to prepare itself for a rebound and how the market can reboot after this particular point in time. And you know, failure is not necessarily also something that is on your shoulders, especially if you look at the pestle, which can certainly impact business. You know, what are the political, economical, social, technology and environmental impacts that could really threaten your business, and you've always got to be aware of that. And I think, you know, the more things that you try, the more times you're willing to test and experiment, it's the chance then to really start to innovate and to find a place where you feel most comfortable with, because often we can put ourselves in situations that we don't feel comfortable with, but we don't learn anything from. And I think it's really important to find that space where you're constantly learning. And like any learning, you don't necessarily get it immediately. So give yourself a bit of space, really, set a goal and go for it. I was unfortunately in one of my roles. I worked with a company called eRevMax. Was there for quite some time, and then I was made redundant. And I must say, when you've put a lot of heart and soul into something, and then it's suddenly gone, it can hurt. And especially at this particular point in time, there's a lot of business people, a lot of professionals who may have been furloughed or been made redundant, and you have to realize that it's not your fault. And that there's a lot of other people in this situation. And for as long as you recognize that and realize that, life doesn't go as you want it to, but try to make the most out of every possible situation, then you're going to progress and you're going to find the light in what can sometimes be the dark.
Okay, I see that. So from BBC to Haynes, Markham, your own company. So you work for the institution and now you are on your own. And you've been talking about, okay, how people need to get out of their comfort zone and make the best out of it. And, you said some of general failures, but we are actually into one big failures, which is the travel industry, where you actually have been working for the past 10 years almost, right?
Right. It's a very difficult time for that industry. It's painful. There's a lot of work that needs to be done, and maybe unlike some other industries, this particular industry relies on a supply chain. If you're going to...
What do you mean? Sorry. We have a lot of kids on this channel. talk as clear as you can, no? For a monkey. So supply chain, I wanted to explain you for a 5 years old kid like my daughter.
Well, okay. Everything's connected. If you're going to go on holiday, you need to get from your house to the destination that you're going to go to. And if that is a destination abroad, then you need to be able to get to the airport. You need a transport. You need to be able to get into the airport. You need security. You need to have baggage handling, ground freight, airport freight. You need to the flights. You need then transfers on the other side. You need the hotels to be working. Everything needs to be working together for you to be able to go on a successful holiday. If there's a part of that isn't going to be working, then the traveler is going to be lost. It's going to be stuck, and you can't be giving that type of experience because that's going to cause mayhem, especially potentially at airports or within hotels when the people are trying to get the information that they need about their holiday or about their travel. So because it's all so connected to one another, every part of the industry needs to work together in order to make sure those mechanisms all work together and they're well oiled. And there's been a way that we've worked in travel that has slowly evolved and adapted over the last 50 to 70 years. Things start somewhere and then suddenly there is a process and procedures in place, and those processes and procedures tend to are quite rigid and they don't change so much. Now with this with the fact that everything's been brought to a halt and everything's in lockdown, how we start again, well, it's unprecedented. We've never had to do it, and so when we will restart again, it will restart in a slightly different way, because now we've got different tools, we've got different technologies, networks have evolved and developed during the lockdown. So I think we're going to hopefully see the industry really working much closer together to bring back holidays and travel really as quickly as possible. But of course, none of us, because we really have to wait for the reduction in the threat and for the governments to really build out their exit plan from the lockdown.
So you say we're gonna be more together. We're gonna rub elbow, and people are gonna stop to compete and more to cooperate. But how do you see that? I mean, are we gonna share again the toys, or is it someone that is getting big and bully and go over the other kid and just take over the game?
Oh God, that could so easily happen, and we definitely have seen that happen in the past. I mean, if you look at following the recession of 2009, the online travel agents and certainly a lot of the big portals really dominated a lot of the marketplace. If you look at travel, Booking.com, Expedia, etc., they were the access to market, to bookings for a lot of hotels. And
so Ryan, okay. I mean, this is great. The analogy from 2008 with the bullies called, Airbnb and Booking. Who is the next bully then?
Well, I mean, it's a different sentiment. It's a different time now. And I think a lot of companies are going to have to be really careful about how they treat their partners, their suppliers, and their customers, because people are very quick to turn their backs on businesses if they don't feel that they're treating other businesses and people fairly. We've already seen the angels and the demons come out of the coronavirus, and there's certainly a lot of companies that have been perceived to have behaved really badly.
Let's start with the angel. Who is the angel here?
We're certainly sort of seeing the way in which people potentially, I mean, there was criticism initially over Airbnb, for example, and the way that they cancelled all their bookings. But then the fact that they came out with their $250 million support package.
Is that real, Ryan? Do you know if someone is pocketing?
We don't know if it's real or not. I mean, it's a matter that it's PR, right? And this is the great thing about big businesses, is that they can use PR to their advantage. And with a big brand name, if you make one single piece of announcement, that goes out across all the press, and it's suddenly the new norm. When in fact it might not actually be an initiative that is successful. It's just an initiative that some business has launched.
But this looks like a twin. Airbnb is the angel and the devil. So they started to cancel, and hosts started to hate them, and then the guests probably started to love them. And so who is the angel and the devil if you need to take two companies? So Airbnb, it's a bit of both. What about Booking or Expedia?
I mean, certainly there's a lot of dissatisfaction, particularly from hoteliers, because they had their bookings all cancelled and they still have to foot the bill in most cases. Whereas, for customers got a lot of their bookings refunded or postponed or then, some form of voucher. And so as a result, the consumer's going to be happy, which is exactly where a lot of these big companies want. But maybe their suppliers aren't so happy. But then that's going to cause their suppliers to look elsewhere to find other channels. So it is quite a tricky place that some of these big companies are in, because they've got to figure out who they got to look after first. And usually they just look after one. And that's their priority. But right now they've got to try to manage the two as best as they can. I certainly, look at EasyJet. I thought the way that they handled their refund policy from the very beginning, and how you could postpone trips even beyond what was the intended lockdown period. I really liked what they did. I haven't been so happy with Ryanair. In fact, I had a number of flights with Ryanair myself.
Ryan, yes, your company. But listen, but about EasyJet, are they still flying? I thought they were down the plane, because Norwegian, for example, is not flying here in Norway, and I understood they wanted to fly with the seat in the middle empty. They wanted to try the distance.
Well, I mean that can't be tested until they open up the airways, really, and we don't know. These are sort of suggestions and ideas, and I think that needs to happen right now. You need to put ideas out there to see how they sit with the general public. You need to see what the response is from the industry. Do they accept this? Will that be the new normal? Things will change, but we can't really say how they'll change until the lockdown is lifted. And we're seeing it starting to lift in countries like Spain. but the progress is still quite slow. And particularly where we've seen Italy and Spain, being heavily affected, and these are, big tourist destinations and property investment destinations from a travel perspective. We're going to see those holidays all wiped out this year. And so as a result, that's going to have a massive impact on GDP of their countries. The risk of redundancies, unemployment levels, businesses falling apart, going bankrupt. Obviously, that could make it a great time for a lot of investors to find cheap property to invest in. But I think we're also going to start to see the diversification in the way that spaces, particularly public spaces, are used. To begin with, we're going to see the return of staycations. What's going to be the role of a hotel when you've got so many people staying in a hotel? How do you manage people coming in and out of the property so that common spaces don't have too many people at one time?
Just a moment. You're taking a lot of great content, all together. I wanted to break it down. So I have some friends coming over, and I say ciao because they are Italian, and I hope they understand some of what you say, which I think is awesome. It's great. Thank you, Ryan, for sharing. So you were talking about several things. You said staycation. Explain again for the 5-year-old. What's staycation?
It's domestic tourism. It's basically staying in your own country and having time off and exploring different parts of where you live. And so, you might not necessarily travel abroad. You'll go to a neighboring city. You'll go to a different part of the country, and that'll be your holiday. And this was something that happened a lot after the 2009 recession. A, because people wanted to save money and it was cheaper to stay in their own country a lot of the time. And B, it meant that they could put their money back into the country, which often for a lot of people is really important to get the economies moving again. And actually, it's a great excuse to discover parts of the country, your own country, that you've never necessarily visited. When I moved to Brazil, I think I'd seen and visited more cities than many of my friends in the 2 years that I had been there. I was all about going around visiting new different states and different towns across the country. And
I agree.
I see more of that.
I agree, Ryan. It looks like live like a local. So Airbnb is actually that you live more than a local, because you see with open eyes, and then locals don't have. Maybe they are so used to, they don't even notice. I heard people living in Rome, one of the oldest cities in the human society, and they don't even bother to go and see those things that people are traveling all around the world. So you're saying people will do like 2008, 2009. That's great. And what else? What else is going to happen? We are talking about commercial real estate investing, and you just mentioned that this is a good opportunity, this recession. If you said recession, I don't know, crisis or pandemic, whatever it is. Why do you think this is a great opportunity? Let's say there is an investor out there where they can invest.
Well, I'm certainly not someone who knows about the investment market in that level of detail, but I would say there are three things that we will see. The first one is these co-working spaces. That's certainly going to change. The second one is mid to long-term property rental. We're going to see.
Wait.
I'll explain each of these. Thank you. And I think the final thing is the change in the way in which we use public common spaces. So let's take the first one. All right.
Yes.
So WeWork, for example. WeWork, we were already seeing massively struggling before any of this. They had a failed IPO, more investment from SoftBank, and now suddenly, what does this mean for the co-working spaces? Particularly with social distancing, there's going to be a lot of question over how that works. With more people working from home, those sort of spaces will need to become more flexible. And I would see certainly that we're going to have less people working in offices, but more companies using a space to bring their team together, maybe once or twice a week, doing group training sessions, workshops, and then each employee goes back to their own home office and gets on with the work in hand. Now, I'm a member of Regus, you see. Now, Regus is WeWork, right? But WeWork came around just under 10 years ago, and they exploded. They offered something that was no real different to what Regus had been doing for the last 30 years. But Regus has 3,000 properties or locations against WeWork's 550. So certainly for someone who works in international business like myself, it was Regus made sense. WeWork was all style, almost for me, very little substance. And I think that these spaces are going to have to adapt to recognize that more people are going to be working from home. They might need to book spaces by the hour. Subscription charges will need to change as a result of that. And so I also, as part of my point about how public spaces will change, public common spaces, it's the opportunity that hotels have as well to enter into that space, to be able to use their large foyer and common spaces as areas that companies can rent out or use for meetings. People can use as co-working spaces or as meeting spots. I think that's going to be a big change. And in fact, the move towards more open foyers within hotels started about 7 or 8 years ago. We saw New York in particular start to open up a lot of their hotels for people just to be able to pop in, work, have a cup of coffee, have a meeting, and then they would disappear again, in the same way that co-working spaces have been working.
So wait, Ryan.
That change.
It came. I mean, awesome. Thank you. And this is what it comes into my mind. This is another great story. I wanted to tell you, and I want you to explain how the ITB, the biggest, the most important travel trade show in the whole world, I think, right? The one in Berlin, in Germany, was canceled for the first time in the history, and then how this was turned into a virtual trade show, and like the hostel, right? The hostel in Berlin was turned into a working space of broadcasting. Yeah. Please tell the story.
I was due to be heading to Berlin anyway. I'd already spoken to Enzo, who you've had on this channel recently. He does Funnel TV, which really looks at revenue management in hotels. And I mentioned that I would be going. I asked him if he would be going. He said he wasn't sure. So we talked about I was going to do some interviews whilst I was at ITV. And then obviously the whole event was cancelled. And so within 72 hours, I worked with the Funnel TV to put on a live broadcast on the Wednesday and Thursday across 4 hours, where we got people from all across the industry to participate. And the great thing about it is that, with technologies, even if people weren't in Berlin, and, we had quite a few interviews whilst we were in Berlin, we had a lot of people join from us remotely due to the fact that they had decided to cancel their travel plans. And that provided a platform for us and a lot of businesses to be able to share some of the news and updates that they had planned to at ITV, whilst also reach to an audience that they had hoped to reach at ITV. And this is, I guess, was really the start as we move towards more online engagements and conferences. As we've seen in the last month, we've had a boom and explosion of online conferences, webinars, webcasts, etc. And that seems certainly like it's going to be the new normal. But this is something that should have been happening a long time ago. Digital has been here for, YouTube in particular has been around for, nearly 15 years now. And we've been able to broadcast for well over 10 years. I was live broadcasting online over 10 years ago.
You're a pioneer. Definitely.
Well, yeah, I'm always way too ahead of when it becomes popular. I'm an early adopter, which I'm also having to adapt. I'm having to learn to become a later adopter, because sometimes if you're too early to the party, you end up getting too tired and missing the party. So you do have to judge it a little bit right. And sometimes there's no harm in just holding back and waiting. Now, with ITB Digital, that was a perfect time to go, this is a problem, I've got a solution, let's do it. and I went straight out and did it. I didn't even think about it. I didn't have to, because I've got that background, I've got that experience. I was just nervous, right? I didn't know if it was actually going to pull off, and it did. It was a brilliant surprise, and that's what can happen if you just go with your gut instincts. You've got to believe, and that comes part in believing yourself. And I've struggled with believing in myself. I suffer from imposter syndrome sometimes, where you feel like you're not as good as the other person, not as experienced, not as knowledgeable. But if you're
not enough, basically.
Yeah.
Okay. That's great. So let's touch into that. So you basically saying that you also had this problem of not having what they call self-confidence, right?
Oh, all the time.
All the time.
Yeah.
But what kicked in? What made the difference for you? What was your why?
Why not?
That's right. Why not?
I'm one of those people that, this idea of dance like nobody's watching.
Dance like nobody's watching. Okay.
No.
Interesting.
Or when they say, imagine all the audience is naked.
Okay.
No, I don't believe in that. I'm quite the opposite. I say dance like everybody's watching. Give it everything that you've got, because either you're going to look good, or you're going to look like an idiot, or people are going to respect you for trying. And very few people are really going to think you're an idiot. Most people are going to respect you for trying. And if you look great, they're going to celebrate that with you. So actually, you've got very little to lose. So that's why I just think, well, let's just do it. Don't overinvest. Trial it first. Try to do it for free, and build your network and get that support. Get feedback from people. That constructive criticism is the most important thing. And also taking time out to review what you've done and see if you would be happy with that product. And
okay.
If you are, keep going.
So I see what you're saying. It sounded like what's that? The X Factor, the program they do, the talent, England Got Talent, whatever. They some of them are very critics, right? Some of the people there in the audience that they I don't know if they are paid for it, but they go and kill the exhibitor, the dancer. But I get what you say. So you're just saying, do everything you can. Just go out there, or put everything you got in everything you do. I like that. So from a failure, ITB is being cancelled, to a success, reaching people that ITB would have never reached. That's great. And then now from the failure of hospitality and travel industry that we all know. I mean, you've been working for the past 10 years, and I also been working. I think Enzo, that you mentioned, which is a friend in common, has been working even longer. But for what we have seen from the 60s to the 90s and now the new millennium, we have seen travel industry from the woman of the richest man in the world, going to Club Med, to Ryanair and EasyJet, bringing the mom and pop that they never traveled in their whole life, to the first hotel, the first holiday. And now what? Are we going where? Are we going back to the rich lady, or is there something else?
Yeah, I'm actually going to be talking about this next Wednesday with iMeet Hotel, where I'll be delivering a presentation about the future of hospitality in particular, but also a way I think that that a whole mindset is going to go. And I think there is going to be different levels of packages depending on the affordability for the people. There's going to have to be. I think the market is always going to eat that up. I think that prices, whilst initially might be lower, or they might be low, I think we're going to see prices have to increase, because there's going to be increased costs for most businesses. I think we're going to see a big impact on insurance as well, and the cost of insurance. I'd be interested to see, what sort of new models are developed around that. And obviously it's going to be tough for a lot of people who don't have the income that they've been used to. We are going to see the luxury market perhaps sort of shrink a little bit because there isn't going to be so much disposable income, and we're probably going to see sort of the 4-star-ish sort of hotel sort of lose its position, because what's the difference between a 4-star and 5-star, or what's the difference between a 3-star
just a sec.
4-star?
I think it was interesting what you said. So the luxury is gonna compress, and I was thinking, so the rich are gonna pay also from this crisis. And okay, you just mentioned the 4-star, the middle class, they're gonna vanish into either lux or poor. But let me understand. So you're thinking that even the rich people are gonna be affected by this crisis? It's not like Jeff Bezos is making more money than before, and I'm thinking different big companies. I'm not too sure about Google and Facebook, which I was gonna ask you before. You said you don't know what's the future of hospitality. Who is the next bully? And you said before 2008, the real estate subprime crisis, it was the online travel agency coming and dominating. And now I was gonna ask you, do you think is the broadcaster, the advertiser, the Google and the Facebook coming and taking all? Even though now they are paying for it, right? They have a lot of companies reducing their marketing budget, like Airbnb and Booking.com.
Sorry, what is the question there?
Well, it's who's gonna come over and take the whole thing. I mean, who's gonna profit from this crisis? Let's put it this way. Maybe it doesn't have to be the Tyrannosaurus Rex, the biggest dinosaur. Maybe it can be the small fish, the small guy. But who's gonna profit from this? And then I just wanted to recap from the riches are gonna pay, or they're not gonna travel again. If you can expand on that.
All right. Okay. So I think it's going to be online technology platforms that are going to win, especially as they need to move everything more remotely. You're going to need more systems, but it can't be handled manually, and you either need a cloud-based sort of server to be able to put all your documents that can be accessed remotely, and that's going to change the way a lot of people work. So I see a lot of technology companies again growing, but really around sort of improving processes and procedures, and handling data. And then when it comes sort of like the luxury market, well, yeah, I mean, a lot of senior managers, directors, owners of companies this year are either taking a pay cut or are not going to receive their bonuses. They're not going to. Some of them are not even going to take their own pay. So, and I know a lot of people in senior management positions who have had a 40% pay cut. So that 40% is what would go on to their more luxury holidays. So yeah, we are going to see a reduction in spend, at least for the next year or this year and possibly next year. But it's going to take at least 2 years looking at the travel market for it all to pick up again. Obviously, if you look at sort of general domestic, a lot of the online delivery will become more powerful as well. Definitely, online shopping. But I think that there is going to be a bit of a hybrid as well. I think you're going to need more customer service, more customer touch point where you're actually speaking to real people, because people want to know if something goes wrong. People want an answer, and they often want an answer from a person rather than either a automated communication system or an impersonal email.
I agree. Actually, let's just say this to people, because you just mentioned a lot of, gems, a lot of very, very good things for people listening. I see people coming in and out, and okay, that's the matter of fact that we went overboard over 30 minutes. We need to wrap it up. But I think great point that you just said. If people are looking for a job right now, Ryan, you said they should look into customer service, and I heard Apple is hiring a lot of people that can work from home and do customer service. And I'm not sure if Shopify, for example, is another company that is hiring. Instacart, you just mentioned before, so delivery, they can go and do food shopping for people if they are in US. I think in UK or in Europe there are different companies doing this job. and then we will see about the hospitality, right? What's going to be the future for hospitality. And we were just talking about maybe the hotels, they're going to turn into hospital, or they're going to turn into retirement for whole people, or they're going to, I don't know, what else that can be. And what about the people working for those companies?
Well, I mean, it's a lot of the manual roles that we mentioned, right? I think there's going to be a lot of manual sort of unskilled roles out there, and it's a place that robots and computers can't fill, unfortunately. But then you're going to need people who've got more strategic and creative abilities to really think about how we can do things differently, and how we can engage with people differently, and how we can create different products and services that are going to entice people and are going to be relevant for this moment in time. It's about being dynamic is the most important thing, because the situation is going to change every single month over the next 2 years. So you've got to be ready to adapt constantly, and be ready to take to grab something from the market when it's most when you see those trends starting to support that investment. And I think we're going to get more data, more insight, which is going to help make those decisions quicker and easier.
Do you see any trend right now? I mean, I just mentioned couple, no? The house for whole people and the hotel turns into hospital. Do you think those are trends?
Personally, living in the UK in a retirement town, I think that there's a big threat to care homes because of health and hygiene and needing to care for people. That's where most people are dying right now, and I wonder whether people may decide not to go for retirement homes, but retirement villages where they can socially distance. I would say that one of the biggest changes will be in the medium to long-term rental market. We've already seen a lot of medium rental marketplaces emerge over the last few years, like HomeLike and Spotter Home, and we've now seen Airbnb wanting to move into that space. I think the long-term rental market will be, again, sort of moved online from the traditional offline. So if you want to rent an apartment, rather than visiting the apartment and then telling the estate agent you want it, and you go to the lettings agent and they give you the paperwork and you sign it, it's all going to become much more digital. It has to. And so I think that the medium to long-term rental market will start to replicate exactly what has happened in the hotel market. You'll see the short-term rental market become more sophisticated in the way they manage their pricing, their packaging, and their distribution. And you're going to see large common spaces like hotels start to be used for different purposes, inviting businesses in to use it as a space, in bringing, allowing local community people to use it as a space. And that will mean that hotels can once again become a heart of the community like they were maybe 70 years ago. So I do think that there is a matter of you have to move forwards, but we could see some of the things that we used to do in the past maybe start to re-emerge, and then this is the time for it to happen.
Okay, so the future looked like the past somehow. Good. So to close this up, where they can find you, where is the place where you hang out, and what's coming up for Ryan? I mean, you just mentioned you have a presentation, and just tell us, where can we find you, Ryan?
Yeah, well, I mean, you can find me on LinkedIn. It's Ryan Haynes with a Y, or you can find me on haynesmarcoms.agency, and that's my agency, or on our podcast, travelmarket.life. And hit me up, LinkedIn me, message me, whatever. I'm willing to answer any questions that someone might have.
That's great. That's definitely Ryan with the Y. Not the same Ryan, the kid that is making $22 million per year.
No, definitely not.
But this has been great. I think a lot of content, and people can watch it again on YouTube, on Facebook, and Periscope.
Right.
And then yes, that was great, Ryan. I think that's it for now. I don't know if you have anything else you want to close with.
No, not at all, Elio. I think I gave my last thoughts just now, but thank you very much for inviting me on today, and I'm glad you're well, and your family, I hope, too. And that's keep making these programs. People need to learn, people need to get inspiration.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, my family in Italy is doing okay. Yes, they haven't been really impacted by it. But I was listening how crazy it is. They go with the shields. Not exactly my family. I was just talking with a cleaning lady that used to clean some of the property Mondosol managed in Tuscany. That's a 3,000 people village, and how they managed to lock down is crazy. So they got gloves. They got masks, surgical, not the good ones, because the good ones are for the doctor, and then they go with the shields. Only one can go and shop in the family. They can visit, their kids, even though they live maybe next door. It's crazy. I think it's. I never seen something like this, but we have to go through it. Maybe we will finish soon. In Norway, actually, it's different. They started early to see the signal, just when few people got sick coming from Italy, from their holiday, the winter holiday, and then they did the lockdown quite immediately. And here people are already used to social distancing. It's not like Italian that they hug and they kiss and they share a lot of spaces together, and that was the problem there in Spain too. I think maybe in some other countries, but here in Norway we haven't seen so many cases, so we are ready to start again. And the last thing I wanted to say is that you're right. In the company here called Finn, they're already signing rent electronically. You don't need to go to a travel agency to get to rent an apartment. So you can do it from a classified. Anyway, thank you very much for coming, Ryan. That was great. Thank you. Bye bye.
Thank you.
Bye everyone. Like, smash the button, whatever, subscribe. Bye bye.